So HBO is saying no to Jon Snow. Kit Harrington has an update for the Jon Snow show that has been in development for a very long time, and he's saying it is off. Why they pulled the plug? Not exactly clear. He's saying that they're not doing it anymore because they couldn't find the right story, which, if you know Hollywood, probably is not the real story. Now, again, let's not go full conspiracy theory. Sometimes the story is just what the story is. Maybe he's telling the truth, maybe not. I would suspect there's something more because there were so many. I've lost count of how many shows, prequel shows, uh, aftermath shows. There were just so many shows tied to Game of Thrones and the George R. R. Martin universe, which I've chronicled over the years that they were planning to do or thinking of doing. Aegon, Nymeria. There's so many. E.T. I could just keep going on and on and on. So they do have a history of trying to do projects. They become abandoned or they don't go through with it. But this one was weird because they were doing this for quite a while. Kit came to George R. R. Martin personally and suggested doing the show, and they got writers for it. He had his own creative team working on this for quite a while. So why they would be pulling the plug seems so strange. It could be he had second thoughts. Again, I don't want to get too much into Kit's personal life, but it's well known he has alcohol problems. Again, it could just be he's still under pressure, doing therapy. It's a lot of different reasons why they're not going to do it. HBO is definitely in a weird place now with its money and budgets. They've already axed or killed off even popular shows. They've just completely restructured what they're doing over at HBO Max. We don't even call it HBO, it's now Max for whatever reason. So it's a lot of puzzles to piece together. But the weird thing here is that the goal immediately has been to terminate, quote, the less popular shows, but get back into the Game of Thrones universe, including with Kit and Jon Snow. So it's very puzzling because a big part of their business strategy was, besides the DCU, this is their major brand, and they wanted to get back into it. And from what I can see, George is not against the idea of doing more and more with his books, although he did have a certain amount of preference. Like for Dunk and Egg, he actually said he didn't want anything done with it until he was finished with another story. So he's not always been totally consistent with how he wants the shows done or how the shows should be adapted, but that is a story for another time. So, what do I, Game of Thrones expert, book reader, and George R. R. Martin fanatic, think about this? Well, may shock people. I just don't care. I just don't care. Now, the idea of an Aftermath show is actually intriguing and a good one because they did so many stupid things with the final seasons that, good or bad, they left themselves with a lot of stories to repair. So, in a weird way, there is actually some an aftermath show in principle is a good idea, but I don't think Jon Snow would have been the right focal point. I would have picked the Hound. I think that would have been a much better place to go with, and have the Hound move over Westeros and go to other places and sort of assess the damage or the reactions to Daenerys and things like that. So the idea of an aftermath show in principle is actually not a stupid one. It's not a bad one. Good or bad, left themselves a lot of material, but I don't know if Jon Snow would have been the right one. I mean, I think it's just too limiting. I mean, again, are we going to keep him in the north? Are we going to make him move out of the north? It's a lot of interesting question marks. And again, are they going to keep the canon? Are they going to retcon everything, rewrite the canon? Don't know. Now, again, want to say on a final word, this does not mean Jon Snow will not happen in the future. All Kit is saying in the foreseeable future, in other words, the next couple of years, they're not going to do the project. That does not mean the project is totally dead. It could be in 5 or 10 years, they're going to revisit the project and say, you know what? Now it's going to work. We have the story, we have the budget, so on and so forth. But I would assume it may, frankly, we got to be honest about this. It could just be the creative team or some behind the scenes drama that we don't know about. And again, it is just becoming alarmingly common that a lot of these creative people, men and women, not just men, have a lot of baggage. And they're like, you know what? Don't want to deal with it. This is too much. Correctly, the Acolyte is getting a lot of flack for choosing Leslie Headland and her association with Harvey Weinstein, which is, this is not a rumor or conspiracy theory. That is there. That is the public record. Again, it could just be they got nervous over publicly endorsing someone who was very toxic and they just had second thoughts. Many possibilities, but for now, Jon Snow is RIP, at least in the foreseeable future.